Virgo, back in the room. This is for you. I hope you're doing well. If you've stumbled across this, you might find some important messages here today. First of the month, 1st of August. So let's have a look, see what's going on with you. Oh, it's a good start. Ace of Pentacles. So could be a windfall. Could be, Virgo, that you're doing all right, material world, that you could be receiving more. Maybe you've had a pay rise, or maybe you've done something a bit genius to attract more money, more resources. Don't have to be money, it could be just more resources, it could be people power. But I feel as if with the Eight of Swords that you have been sort of in denial about something, not really seeing the things as clearly as you could be. There's something you're maybe not prepared to face up to. And I feel as if whatever's coming in terms of helping you out in your material world, could be to do with a water sign. Could be giving you some help financially, or there's an offer of assistance. Perhaps you've been asking for assistance in some particular area of your life. Most likely it's related to work. And you're being careful with money at the moment, Virgo. It looks like you're being quite careful with money and where you know your resources and where you're putting it. You might be working on a project that's going to need more resources. Maybe that's the thing you don't want to face, that you could be in a project and you're looking at how you're going to develop it with the resources that you already have. And this is why there might be somebody looking like there could be somebody coming in for, to help you. You're holding it on a bit tight. It looks like you're holding on to the purse strings quite tightly. Being cautious there. But you're going to communicate. I feel as if you're going to communicate your needs, and it might be that you need to raise some funds, and you're going to have to find a sort of smart way of doing that, or ask somebody if they can help you financially, or I feel like any projects you're doing is sort of pushing you into honing your communication skills. Earth energy, 9 of Pentacles. Even though you may be feeling as if you don't have sufficient funds, or that you would feel better if you had a bit more, because you may be feeling that you're going to have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more power to to move things forward more quickly. I feel like you don't need to be in a hurry. You don't need to be rushing, because you've got the 9 of Pentacles, which is telling you that you are already in a good enough position, and anything that you might be lacking, if it is funds, in terms of helping you through this, in terms of investing. Maybe you're feeling you should be investing more. It could be that you want to invest a bit more time in something, and you're having to invest time in something else. It's taking your attention away from the project that you are working on, and so you're having less time doing the project and looking at other ways of possibly fundraising, and that's taking up, could be that it's taking up more of your time than you would like, and more of your attention, more of your focus is about raising, is about the money, material issues, which could be affecting your creativity. It could be affecting your ideas. I feel like you're sort of divided here, Virgo, that you've got, on one hand, you've got a project that requires investment. On the other hand, you've got, and we've all been here as creatives, we've all been here, you're wanting to invest money in the project to get off the ground, but on the other hand, you've also got to be focused on the actual finances that are going to make it, make it real, bring it into the real, make it viable, make it go, make it work. But I don't feel yet that, I feel as if because you have the the Eight of Swords, it could be that you're not seeing with a great deal of clarity, and I feel like, as I said, it's clouding your capacity to I'm feeling the word imagination, your ideas. But you've got the Nine of Pentacles, which is telling you that you do have sufficient, but you need to be clever with how you use the resources you have. And maybe you need to ask for some advice about the financial side of this, and even some help, or look at funding options. And you need to, so you need to be seeing things from another perspective. You need to be, Hanged Man, looking at things differently. If you take the sort of blinkers off for a minute, there could be advice coming in for you, that you could have been advised about how you should move forwards, and the advice might not have been welcomed, or it's the advice you got doesn't really gel with your ideals and your way of seeing things. And maybe you've taken advice and now you're looking at the, you're comparing and contrasting, weighing your ideas up with someone else's ideas. For example, if you are working on some project or other, you have maybe a conflict of opinions, and there could be input. Somebody could be someone investing in what you're doing, as long as they get a percentage of input, you know, if you see what I mean, into how you do things. And that feels like a compromise. And you're looking at things differently because of maybe something that somebody said, maybe even criticism you've received about how you're moving towards how you're doing things. It's made you think again about what you're doing and maybe the concepts you're having. The concepts that you're having, the ideas you're bringing forth that you feel are, you know, the way you feel that they're sound. And there could be somebody up in your ear, or somebody that you might be even collaborating with, who has different ideas and different approaches and is offering up different solutions. That could have given you a bit of brain fog. It could have made you a little bit confused, and you're kind of weighing up your options. If that resonates or makes any sense whatsoever. And you have the 9 of Cups here. You know, whatever you're doing it is fulfilling, and because it is fulfilling, you're focused on it. It's probably bringing you a lot of satisfaction as you're developing this. It's like there's a missing component, I feel like. Five of Pentacles. You might shut down someone else's ideas. You might have had, you know, some collaboration, somebody else's input, offering you advice, and you could have closed them down, or decided you didn't want to take this advice because you're feeling as if your way, what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're managing everything and how you see things evolving, how you see things developing. You know, it's your vision, I suppose what I'm trying to say, is your vision, and you're not appreciating too much of other people's input, because you have this, and very typical of you, Virgo, you have this almost dog with a bone attitude, sort of, you know, this is what I'm doing, this isn't, you know, the concept is here, how you're going to get from here to here, what tools you're going to need, how much input you're going to need, how much you're going to have to invest of your time, as well as your creativity, as well as your funds, or the funds you have. And you may be, with the Hangman here, taking a little bit of a back step to see whether anyone who might be collaborating with you or offering you help here, whether their input is viable or not. And you might be in a place where you're deciding whose input and whose help and whose kind of worthwhile you taking, because I feel as if there's something collaborative here, and not everybody's penny's worth is valid. And you may be feeling as if Taurus energy, 5 weeks. You may have a deadline, Virgo, you may have a deadline, and you're seeing, because you have a deadline, you could be looking at a 5-month completion. 5 weeks, I'd say more like 5 months or so. Or you might be under, severe deadline, could be 5 days. But I feel as if the concept of deadline, and that's a terrible phrase when you think about it, deadline, terminology, due date, the time of completion is quite pending, or you've already told yourself, darling, you've already told yourself that you want something completed by a certain time. And that could be because of funds, and that could be because of circumstances, that could be because of various factors. So you've set yourself a due date, a date of completion. And I feel as if you're also asking yourself if the completion date is a realistic goal. Or not. Yeah, it's Virgo, I feel like with the Ten of Staves, you are quite, burdened by this. I feel as if what you've taken on, what you're doing, from time to time, not every day of the week, but from time to time, it's feeling like a load, It's like, it could be that you're working on something that's turned out that when you started it, it seemed quite straightforward, and you had it all mapped out and planned out, very meticulously, as you would, Virgo. So, you kind of meticulously had your plan, your organisation, it was all very organised, you had this kind of mapped out, all the, T's crossed and the I's dotted, and then you, somewhere along the line, I feel as if, Virgo, you've come unstuck a little bit, not hugely. It's not like you're throwing your hands up in the air and cancelling everything. But I feel as if, okay, right, is that bitten off more than you can chew? Or that as your projects, and it could be more than one project here, evolve, is developing, you've become aware of, and this always happens more often than not, 9 times out of 10, when you work on a creative project, up here and in the plans and in the ideas and in the mapping out the, what you're going to do, with plenty of leeway, not always plenty, but enough room for this and that. You've now seen that what started off as a relatively easy journey and process it's actually now become a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger, a little bit more larger than you might have wanted, the workload is more than you had anticipated. The workload is more than you'd anticipated. And yeah, Ace of Wands. But you're still passionate about the projects, or the project, or the projects. You're still passionate about it. So it's not knocked you off, it's not put you off, it's not made you feel as if, despondent because it now seems larger than life, or larger than, it's not exactly becoming a monster that you can't deal with. It's just that it's more work than you might have thought it would be from the get-go. And now you have, but you've also realised that because you're passionate about what it is you're doing, that's the thing that's enabling you to manage it. That's the thing that's enabling you to not give up. So whatever it is you're doing, Virgo, whatever project you're involved in, whatever work you're involved in, it's, you know, you're stimulated enough as well, and you're passionate about it enough that the blips and the detours and the additional maybe costs and the additional stress, it's not going to get you down. But I feel like not to use the word deadline, the due date or the completion date is something that you're now having to reassess, or even drop that. I mean, sometimes due dates or creating a due date it's helpful to work towards, obviously, a due date, a goal. You know, it is helpful because it enables you to work within a certain time frame, so you don't waste time, or so you don't procrastinate. But, you know, on the flip side of that, it can make there's a certain rigidity where, you know, one can tell oneself, well, if I don't meet this due date, then it's, you know, it could fail, or if I won't meet this due date, and then I'll miss something because I don't meet that date, because it could be tied up with something else. And the question is, who has put that in place, and why is that due date in place? Is it because of other people, because of maybe collaborators, and it's necessary, and there's so much time they have, so much time you have, or is there some event, or is it, you know, in the case of, you know, saying having a book published, you know, you have so many months by the publishers are on you saying, you know, you've got this time, you've got until then, before we can, you know, you have a 3 months or something, or you have, if it's an exhibition, or, you know, the exhibition dates are, you know, a particular time, and, you know, the project or the projects must be completed and handed in by this particular date. Now, if you're creating this due date for yourself, you know, there aren't too many other outside factors. Maybe ask yourself why you've put yourself that, you know, why have you made that decision that it has to be done by, you know, it's necessary to complete it by. For some of you, Virgo, not all of you, for some of you, you might be looking to consider an extension. I mean, if Virgos, you know, any of you are students, or you're finishing something, you know, within an academic environment, you might be wanting to ask for an extension, or suddenly thought you might have to give a presentation to somebody, which has given you an additional workload. or apply for funding, which is giving you more paperwork. Whatever it is, you're going to have some kind of communication coming in. Telling you to decide, asking you to decide. And this could be collaborators. This could be collaborators that they are putting a bit of pressure on you to let them know when this project or these projects are to be completed. But I feel like you've got the extra workload or the extra issues relating to this. You know, it's like you kind of opened a can of worms and suddenly realise that there's a lot more to it than you had first anticipated from the onset. Which can create complication. But go with your gut. Go with your gut. Because I feel as if you go with your gut, if you let go, let God, go with your gut over anybody else's, say, input or advice, because I feel you're getting that. I feel like that you've got lots of wands of communication, swords, energy, and I feel as if any input you're getting or advice or even criticism about how you're doing things is something that, yes, you can consider. You've got the Hangman. You surely look at other people's perspectives and look at perspectives and before making your own mind up. But in this case, I don't think it's a case of making your mind up. I think you already know what you need to do. But you're making a lot of these decisions you're making in relation to this are maybe overtly, logical, practical, even pragmatic, where you can afford to not cut corners, but you can afford to let things go a little bit, let things flow, and allow for a little bit of leeway, so that the unexpected, the unplanned can have a positive effect. Be careful, Virgo, of being too much of a pedant here as well. Overly concerned with the overall outcome that you may have already sort of mentally decided how this should look, what you want, what you want it to be by the end of, and that doesn't always work. I mean, from personal experience, I find that if I put too much of a emphasis on the outcome of a project, when I'm working a project, and I put far too much emphasis on the outcome, that can have a negative kind of backlash, where I've sort of set myself up for a bit of a fall, because one, I might not meet that expectation that I've put on myself. Two, when I get to that point of completion, I then question whether what I've done is even half of what I could have done. And then you get this sort of mental chatter, sort of negative self-talk, which can happen because of almost putting an excess amount of pressure on yourself, because you've decided that this is, this is how it's going to be by the end of this journey of creative, this completion of a project. And so beware that you haven't sort of stitched it up too tightly, expecting a certain outcome, expecting a certain, and also a certain response. Be careful that you're not thinking about how whatever you're working on is going to be received as well, because that can also be something that will give you a bit of a headache. Don't be thinking about how things might be, even how things will go down. That's also that will kill your kind of passion for it too. The best way to deal with that is to take a step back, perhaps go and do something different, and literally let go, let God. Don't worry about that. How things transpire ultimately is not down to controlling everything. From the vision you've had, you want to stick to that vision. You've already decided how it should be. It's not allowing for, and also it doesn't help if you're collaborating with anyone. It doesn't help their role in it as well, because by having that very sort of set up, that very mapped out, dreamed up, preconceived idea, then you're not really allowing for additional extras. Things where other people involved can have a positive input or a positive impact, because you're closing it kind of down if you're doing that thing about this is what I'm aiming for, this is how it should turn out, this is what I want by the have to have achieved. It's no longer collaborative if it is a situation, a project, or endeavour that involves other people, and then you guys just come across as controlling, because you're fixated on the outcome at the end of it. So just sort of bear that one in mind. What else, Virgo? Receive. Because you deserve your desires to be met, and it's time for you to receive. And I think this could be linked with receiving input, and I feel as if you've had some input from certain individuals that you've not readily welcomed, or that the input wasn't or the advice you've had wasn't really coming from a place of somebody actually fully understanding what it is you're doing, and so you may have kind of shut down on that sort of receptive part, of hearing or accepting advice or criticism, because what you're doing, you might also be keeping quite close to your chest. You've had the four of Pentacles, so you're not giving it all away, letting people know exactly what it is you're doing, keeping possibly a lot of the ideas you're having as well, not discussing too much about where you're at and how it's going and what you need. If you need anything from other people, it's as if, Virgo, you don't want to jinx it. And also from time to time, I'm feeling as if from time to time you're not entirely sure of the direction in which it's going, and why you need to take a step back sometimes. Because I do that when I'm working on a project. I will get so into it that I almost get lost in it, and then I can't see anymore, you know, and my vision is clouded, and I have to take a big step back several miles away from it, and come back, you know, like almost ignore it, come back, go off, do something completely different, so that you detach from it, and then you can go back into that space, and you've got another vision. And in the time away from, you know, working on it, being in it, you know, you're picking up, maybe you're receiving other information, you know, maybe just in your daily life, you know, when you put it a little bit on hold, you find you get a little download, a little bit of inspiration from somewhere because you happen to go to a certain coffee shop and you saw a certain thing happening, and you've gone, ah, yes, now that's made me think, I can use that idea, I can do that. So do make sure that you're getting enough time and space away from what you're doing, and not absorbing yourself, you know, to the point where you're too in it, you're too immersed in it to even that. So therefore, that you're so immersed in it that you can no longer see it, if that's making sense. Yeah, and you've got a nudge here to witness the present, be in the stay in the present moment, not future thinking. Try not to do the future thinking. You know, the outcome. Where's this going? Is it going to be this? How will it get? How will I get from here now to that, or completion date? Because it can actually kill it. So stay in the present as much as you can, and take each, you know, day, each moment, each minute you spend on it. Take it, you know, day by day, pace by pace, one foot in front of the other. Now you are attracting what it is you need right now, but you have to believe that you are a magnet for anything you might be looking for to help you get through here, and that being receptive to that, you know, like in the case you could meet a random stranger, have a conversation, and it turns out that that person is exactly the person you sort of need for the job, that kind of need for the job. I mean, you know, who could help you, or you would just that was just what you were looking for at that particular time, that can, you know, aid or assist or have some input that you were needing. So believe in the miracles, be open to that. You know, don't do that thing where you're kind of, this is my project and I'm doing this and I'm in control of it, and because that isn't going to help, because that way you can get literally too immersed in it, not allowing for things to come in which could help you in moving it forwards, because you're taking inspired action to materialise these desires. So perhaps ask yourself if there are things you now need to get these things moving along. It could be an idea not to be looking at the mapping out and the planning and the outcome and the you know, the due date and all that, what you want to achieve. It could be that simply writing where you are with this, also how you've got to a certain point, where you are in the present, and simplify what you might need to do over just the next week or the next few days, as opposed to the next 5 weeks or months, or, you know, it could be the number 5 here, that don't plan. I don't know why I'm feeling that don't plan further than 5 days at the moment. Don't plan further than 5 days, and certainly not further than 5 weeks. Yeah, ground yourself. Time for some outdoor grounding, getting into nature, grounding yourself. Do something. To keep yourself grounded. Yeah, buddy. What else, Virgo? Yeah, you're confident about it. You're confident. Your passion and your confidence hasn't dropped out of the equation, that's for sure. But your worries and concerns could be about who you're listening to, any input, other people's ideas, how you process them and whether you use them or don't use them, or how to communicate if you don't want to accept someone else's input, how you kindly let them know that you don't appreciate that input, or you're not going to use that idea without feeling you're hurting anyone's feelings, and how to assert that, you know, or, you know, because how things happen, you'll be working with people, and then someone will have an idea and they'll put it forwards, and it really doesn't gel with yours, and you're in a place where you think, well, let's compromise here and let's collaborate here. We're collaborating, so we've got to compromise and find a middle ground. You don't have to do that all the time. If that input, that idea comes forward, you are able to say, you know, no, I don't feel that, or at least give it some thought, but not allow these ideas to overshadow your ideas, which can be an issue, but also accept the ideas if there are good ideas coming in that are going to help, that are positive, and you feel that they kind of fit into the plan, then be receptive to them, but be discerning at the same time as to whether you feel that are you accepting ideas and you feeling like you want to incorporate them because you're working together, or just because you feel you should. You know, it's more a case of knowing, like this let go, let God, knowing from your gut, if you know, going with your first gut instinct, sort of yay or nay, not dwelling too long or too hard on what someone else might want to input, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Could be a stumbling block. You know, don't people please. Consider things by all means, but don't find yourself people pleasing. Don't feel that you are, but there's that fine balance between not allowing things in, not being receptive and open to ideas, and the wanting to control the whole thing to the point where you're not prepared to. So be open, and as I said, loosen up a little bit, especially in terms of the time frame, completion, due date, because that puts you under the cosh a bit and makes you feel a bit more pressured than you need to be. When you are powerful and passionate about this. Another thing, don't be overpowered either. If I'm feeling like there's some insistence, somebody else being insistent about the way you do something, don't be overpowered if you're quite aware that you do remain in the driving seat at the end of the day. And listen. We all do this time to time. We hear without listening. Simon and Garfunkel. People hearing without listening. Which is crime to humanity. What was that? No, it's an easy one to fall into. So make sure that you are grounding yourself, being open to ideas, and being able to listen beyond the hearing things, and that could be a case of hearing, digesting, and then deciding. Because there could be some important, advice, I feel, coming in for you, but you have to be receptive and open to that. And because you might have received some bad advice, or it may have made you a little bit reticent to accept, advice from maybe the wrong sources, or you've listened to advice before and you found that that's kind of backfired and it hasn't helped. I don't feel you're a novice here. I feel as if you've got enough experience, Virgo, to make your own mind, or go with your own, trust yourself. Maybe this is a learning curve that you have to be aware of. Other people's input that isn't necessarily always required or always accepted. I've been here too, where you have advice from outside sources, but because they're not in it as you're in it, they're not really seeing where you are very clearly, and they're giving you advice from their standpoint, and their standpoint is a long, long, long way away from where you're at, because you haven't given them that much information. You are keeping your cards quite close to your chest here, and so they're only going on the information that they have, which is not the full picture. So their information, the input, or the advice they're giving you here could be not that helpful, and you've got to a point, perhaps, Virgo, where you understand that the best advice you're going to get is going to be from you or the people that you're more closely working with. It could be, Virgo, that you've come to a point where you think that you are your best advisor, or that when you chat to people about where you're at and what you're doing, and this could be a complete stranger, this happened to me several times, when you discuss where you're at and someone you've never met before, and you meet randomly, and they know where you are, and they've got the perfect sort of slice of advice for you that you hadn't expected to hear. So be aware, keep listening, have your ears open, have your eyes open, be receptive, because help can come in all sorts of extraordinary and unexpected ways that you least expect. So don't go to the same sources. If you've been going to the same sort of sources for advice, they can go off like a yogurt in your fridge, because it's it's the same. It's got a sell by the same advice from the same people, and you could have evolved to a point where the advice that the people you've gone to for advice while giving you advice, that is no longer relevant, because you've got here now, and they're still giving you advice from here. And you might be healing some issues to do with things that you've done in the past, things that have healing issues to do with your understanding of advice that you've been given. Maybe you've had people in the past who have been quite dictatorial or quite overbearing, maybe in your formative years, and you have felt that you've had to follow their advice, as a kind of appeasement or a people-pleasing thing, that you've kind of grown out of now, but every so often you find yourself going back to that, the people-pleasing, the kind of being the yes man or the yes woman, and then you need to correct yourself and understand that this could be something that, and a reason why sometimes you find it difficult to accept advice at the moment, Virgo, because of bad advice in the past, or advice that has rubbed you up the wrong way, or advice you followed which has then caused problems for you, because you've then pulled back and said to yourself, damn it, why did I take that advice? Because that advice they weren't in my shoes, And the expression about to understand someone, you've got to walk a mile in their shoes, before you can really in a position to even help or even give advice. And that the people that might have been giving you advice in the past, they've never walked even a centimetre in your shoes. They never even tried your shoes on, So be aware that, and I think that's an issue that you've got to look at, that every so often you might slip back into that place where you're taking advice from people who were giving you advice, even formative years, and now you're not there anymore. You've grown past that. Yeah, and empathy. Empathy is required from you. You are empathetic. You can be Virgo. Virgos I know have an extraordinary amount of empathy for others, which is why they're often very good at, Virgo, you're very good at people management, being able to get people to work, their best, bring out the best in people working together. You have these people management skills because you also have great empathy, naturally have empathy. You are a mutable sign as well, ruled by Mercury. Gemini as well. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and it's not too difficult for you to walk in someone else's shoes, in fact, and that's where your empathy comes from, because you can more often than not, you can tune in to when you understand somebody might be struggling and what they're struggling with without having to ask too many questions, and that's a very useful skill when you're working with other people. And so being able to tune in, feel it, understand, without making that third person feel uncomfortable, and then trying to smooth out any issues and resolve the problems and situations, it comes rather naturally to you. So, if you're ever wanting to ask yourself, am I doing well enough? Is this, am I failing here, or am I flailing here, or am I succeeding here? Or any of these questions when you might feel a bit under the weather about your skills and abilities. Then always go back to that. Remind yourself about the empathy you have, which often goes overlooked, because you do it in a kind of magical way, where people don't even notice that you're sorting stuff out behind the scenes, that kind of thing, without them necessarily noticing you noticing them. They're not noticing. It's a bit like watching you watching them. They're not noticing perhaps sometimes that's what's happening for you. You oversee things, and be gentle in your approach as well. Even if you get frustrated and you feel that things aren't going as well as you want them to go, or as well as you had anticipated on a particular day, in a particular week, or on a particular morning, whatever. Just sort of be gentle, have the grace to step back, softly. Let's see, Virgo, let's get you out. One of these beautiful, God is going in golden opportunity. You started with the Ace of Pentacles, you see, and that also does suggest that important doors are opening for you that will bring you success, rewards. It's on the cards. It's going to bring you success, whatever it is you're doing. So make sure you do walk through them, because there could be doors opening and you're not noticing that they are, because you could be so deeply engrossed sometimes in work that you're not noticing something else, opportunity that's kind of calling you, and you might just miss that. So definitely start to be more honest with yourself as well. And yeah, that's cool. Sarasvati. What a lovely word that is, Sarasvati. Express yourself through creative activities, which I feel you're doing, or if you're not doing, you're going to be looking at that direction. And if you're not, it could be something you've been considering doing. So we're going to find out if there's any stone crystal that could be of help, energy wise. Well, landed on star dioxide. There are 3 different types of dioxide. I'm not very familiar with it. It's a silicate, a chain silicate mineral, and it helps with spirituality and harmonises extreme mood swings. Also aiding recognition of the spiritual nature of being and the underlying spiritual causes of all phenomena. Interestingly enough, fortifies the heart and the kidneys, the nerves, the muscles and blood vessels. It's quite scarce, not often available, so that might not be so easy to get a hold of. Let's find something, let's ask them for something that can help you. No, it's determined. Well, there's dioptase, which is hydrous copper silicate, and it's for enhancing wealth, beauty, happiness, and helps protect oneself It helps to project yourself in the right light. Also helps with depth of feeling, hope and intense dreams. If you're having intense dreams, doesn't look in this spread as if you're having any extreme or intense dreams. And also helps you tap into your greatest potential, bringing a wealth of ideas and creativity. That sounds more appropriate. Dioptase, Dioptase, and it's kind of green, crystalline looking thing. Anything else? Oh, shungite. Now this is something I keep coming across. It's called shungite, and it is readily available, easy to get your hands on shungite. In fact, I saw some the other day. Shungite, and its mineralogy is coal in oil shale. So it's coal in an oil shale, and it looks a bit like a bit of flint. And the indications are for achievement. It helps overcome fear of loss, any isolation and material damages. It enables giving up old habits and any destructive thought patterns. And it does also help with digestion, because Virgo, your body part, if you like, is about digestion, the digestive system, which is why you could be prone to nervous anxiety, which affects your stomach. Any nervous anxiety, or when you're overly stressed, then more often than not with Virgoans, it will go to your gut and it causes you tummy upsets and all sorts of things. So it does boost your digestion, metabolism and excretion, and cleanses the intestine. So shungite could be good, especially in these cases, enabling giving up old habits, destructive thought patterns, any material damages. Now selenite is also right here, and selenite is something that I recently got hold of a piece of this. I think it could be useful for everybody really. It's a crystalline clear calcium sulfate, and it's to enhance gentleness, stimulus, cessation, can't say this word, cessation, easing stress, bringing emotional stability, and promotes unprejudiced perceptions. Also calming nervous system, improving movement, and helps with motor and coordination disorders. Now, there are two types. This is gypsum. This is the, I think this is the selenite gypsum. And there's fibrous gypsum, which is shielding, control, a stronghold on life, calms irritation, hyperactivity, protects against loss of control, and helps withdraw for conscious perception, dissolution of personal patterns. It's a fibrous calcium sulfate. But I think the gypsum crystal is the one which will help ease stress. It also it brings emotional stability, and it can bring a sense of calm. You know, if you're working in a busy environment, for example, it can bring a sense of calm and ease stress around you. Selenite. Well, that's what I've got for you, Virgo. I hope it's helpful, and that you have at least got something out of this. Do like, share if you feel like sharing or liking this video, or comment. Leave me some feedback. Comment if you feel it. I'm wishing you all the best. Take care. Good luck. And yeah, have a good week. Bye for now.